Hello, werewolf. Look at me. I am very powerful being. Look at me, or I will come to the earth and scare you. My neighbor was recently diagnosed with a disease that causes him to go into long periods of sleep on a set schedule. He said he couldn't for the life of him read his doctor's handwriting for the name of it. Otherwise, he would have given me the name to research ways to help him through it. Anyways, he came over to my house 3 weeks ago and asked me to feed and watch his pets over the weekend, which was his scheduled extended rest periods during his recovery. I agreed, and he offered to pay me $20 after each weekend and told me I could sleep in the guest room if I needed to. He gave me the rundown of everything to do around the house. When to feed the dogs, when to feed his cat, and when to take the dogs out. Where the litter box was, in case he didn't clean it before his weekend cycle, and where all of the pots and pans were if I decided to cook while spending time there. He showed me the rest of the house and showed me where his room was. He said not to disturb him, as it could mess with his recovery process if he wakes up in one of his rest cycles. The first week went great. His dogs got used to me very quickly, and his cat warmed up to me on the first day that I was there. I let the dogs out, fed the cat while they were outside, then fed the dogs when they came back in. The litter box was clean, which was a relief. I decided to even stay the night since his house was actually pretty nice. After a pretty uneventful evening, I went to lay down in the guest room. After a while of laying down, I decided to get up and walk around, realizing I tried to go to sleep too early, even though it was well past 11, my usual time of going to sleep for work in the morning. Walking around the house for a bit, I decided it would just be best to lay down for the rest of the night. Walking back to the guest room, I heard a loud thump from somewhere in the house but just brushed it off, with one of his dogs trotting past me into the guest room. The rest of the weekend went by without any other disturbances. On Monday, after I got home from work, he paid me and told me it would be another 3 weekends, and that he could grab stuff from the grocery store for me for over the weekend if I wanted him to. I gave him a small list of foods, and he said he'd get them for me. The second weekend was different, to say the least. Everything was going great at first. I fed his pets and cleaned up around the house for the first day, and decided to stay the night there again, and for the most part, it went great. That was until I passed by my neighbor's room. As I passed by, I could hear very light dragging coming from the other side of the door, like someone was walking around and trying to be quiet, but not picking their feet up. "Jay?" I whispered from the other side of the door, hoping it was him, trying to find his way in the dark. I instantly regretted it and heard the shuffling move to the door slowly. I pressed my ear to the door, but all I could hear was faint but labored breathing. I decided to just go back to the guest room and didn't sleep the whole night. I just kept the door locked and tried to pass the time until the morning. The third weekend and the most recent one is why I'm writing this. Getting to his house, things didn't seem right. There weren't any weird smells or markings on the walls, but everything just seemed really tense. Even his pets felt it. His cat barely left her scratching post bed, and his dogs didn't want to go near the back of the house. The first day went by slowly, and it was the only day I spent the last weekend. I cooked myself dinner that night, laid down afterward, and fell asleep instantly. Saturday morning though, something was instantly wrong. All of his pets were in the room with me, and they were all staring at the door, which I left wide open before I fell asleep. I walked through the house, but nothing was amiss. I realized what was wrong when walking back to the guest room to grab my phone. There was an overwhelming smell of metal in the hallway leading to the back rooms. I ran to the guest room and instantly called the police. When they got there, they searched the house, and the smell hit them as it hit me. I told them everything that's been happening, my neighbor's illness and why I was there, and showed them his doctor's notes with his medication and details on recovery, telling them he was in the sleeping over the weekends, and that things have been going well the first 2 weeks up until now. They told me to grab my stuff and head to the living room while they got into the room. As soon as they got into the room, they shouted for me to get out of the house, but my curiosity got the better of me. As soon as I saw the inside of the room, I vomited. There was blood everywhere, and when I say everywhere, I mean it. There were maybe 3 or 4 spots in the room where the original colors of items in his room showed. There were dents in the walls, and scratch marks on the inside of the windows. I blacked out and woke up an hour later in the hospital. It turns out the blood was my neighbor's, but they don't know how. Nobody could have gotten into the room, and they showed me why with pictures taken for evidence. The windows were made of 2 panes of bulletproof glass, with a grid of bars in between. I never noticed because his shades were always drawn, and I never was in the back of his yard when the dogs were out. There were heavy claw marks on the inside of the door of his room as well. The only thing I can wonder at this point is, what was he trying to keep out of, or in his room?